and Jesus is my savior. I don't worship President Trump, and I'm really sick and tired of the bull annex I have to deal with constantly.
These days, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is angry, it may be thanks to this. Trump picks Governor Kristi Noem to serve as Homeland Security Secretary.
Those criminals, murderers, rapists that are threatening safety in our communities, they're going to be the first ones on the list to go.
But much of MAGA world thought the job of DHS Secretary would go to Greene.
Congressman Greene, you've done so much work. You're such a fighter. Now, is there any truth to the rumor that you're going to take over as DHS?
While Greene laughed on election night, associates say she now feels humiliated. Furthermore, Greene reportedly wanted the DHS secretary gig and thought her long-standing focus on immigration would land her the job.
That's 45,000 encounters in the last 5 days.
But now, instead of Greene running DHS, it will be Kristi Noem, whose most prominent security and law enforcement experience includes executing a dog.
You wrote in your recent book, No Going Back, about shooting your dog, Cricket. Of course, the blowback was intense.
In fact, it was so intense that Noem, who was once considered to be on Donald Trump's shortlist for vice presidential running mate, was removed. But things get even worse for Marjorie Taylor Greene, because Greene also wanted to be considered by the Trump campaign for the vice presidential slot. And Greene got snubbed on that as well, and was reportedly never even asked to submit any background materials or vetting documents, even as MAGA world mouthpieces kept talking up Greene.
As somebody who'd be a great running mate for Donald Trump, I just wonder what you do with that.
Well, you know what? I think if he asked me, I would definitely give that some strong consideration.
According to NBC News exclusive, reporting the controversial Georgia Congresswoman is setting her sights on just that, a presidential ticket, hoping to team up with former President Donald Trump as his VP in 2024.
Former Trump aide Steve Bannon, who spoke to Greene, told NBC News she sees herself on the shortlist for Trump's VP. But getting left off that Trump vice presidential shortlist was said to be especially embarrassing for Greene, given how much she publicly promoted Donald Trump.
President Trump is the people's choice. He's the one that we elected in 2016. We reelected him in 2020, and we will elect him in 2024.
When Trump got indicted in New York, Greene compared him to Jesus.
President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. There have been many people throughout history that have been arrested and persecuted by radical, corrupt governments.
A few years ago, Greene even appeared with a Trump cardboard cutout and seemed to rub his crotch.
Standing up in there in the mucky swamp. Diane always has them in the mucky swamp. Yeah. But it's amazing.
And never mind the attachment to Trump, there is Greene's own insatiable ambitions.
Every time she looks in the mirror, she sees a president staring back at her. The vice presidency might be the fastest route to do that.
When it became clear this summer that Greene was not even under consideration by Trump in his campaign, she became especially agitated in congressional hearings and seemed to have a very short fuse in television interviews.
We should be voting to impeach Joe Biden because of the invasion in the United States. Oh, but no, none of that is happening up here in Washington, D.C., because Republicans continually have their head up their ass and can't figure out how to actually use the power that the people gave us.
One can understand if Greene is melting down again, but this time over the Trump cabinet snub. Adding to Greene's potential feelings of betrayal and frustration, there are reports that Donald Trump has repeatedly made demeaning comments about Greene's physical appearance.
Unfortunately for her, honestly, Donald Trump is a shallow human being, and I don't think she's going to meet the looks match for him. And, you know, I hate to say that to disparage another female, but we know how shallow this man is.
Look. Now, never mind the knock on Greene's looks. Donald Trump has allegedly told people close to him that Marjorie Taylor Greene generates too much attention. And Trump reportedly thinks that Greene could take attention away from him. Trump associates also say he was put off earlier this year when he told Greene to back off her efforts to dump Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, and Greene tried to move forward anyway.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant.
The boos were bipartisan.
This is the uniparty for the American people watching.
Gentlelady will suspend.
As Greene flipped her lid, some Republicans during her floor speech went outside to the Capitol steps and described Greene as a traitor and a lunatic.
Mr. Law in New York. House will be in order.
Moscow Marjorie has clearly gone off the deep end, maybe the result of a space laser. But this type of tantrum is absolutely unacceptable, and it does nothing to further the cause of the conservative movement.
When given a choice between advancing Republican priorities or allying with the Democrats to preserve his own personal power, Johnson regularly chooses to ally himself with Democrats.
In the end, 163 Democrats voted with 196 Republicans to block Greene's effort. The outcome was a debacle for Greene, and it reportedly convinced Donald Trump that for all of Greene's fire and brimstone and loyalty to him, Marjorie Taylor Greene is ineffective and widely detested in both parties. Over the past 18 months, Greene has had public spats with several staunch conservative Trump supporters in Congress, including Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz. And Greene has repeatedly been sanctioned by Republican committee chairs for her over-the-top behavior at House hearings. Several Trump campaign staff allegedly referred to Greene as low class when she attacked the Biden family, not by highlighting financial transactions, but rather by repeatedly displaying pornographic pictures of Hunter Biden.
And it's marked
Mr.
out.
Chairman, point of parliamentary inquiry.
Showing
Point of
proof
parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
proof
Chairman.
of Mann
Okay.
Act violations. Democrats should not be
Okay.
offended by pictures
Mr.
that
Chairman,
black out.
have I been
things.
recognized?
They should be
Objection. I
offended
have a
by
point of
actual
parliamentary
human
inquiry.
trafficking.
Greene's antics opened the door for Democrats, including Jared Moskowitz, to talk about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
Remind my colleagues, because, I don't want them to forget about hypocrisy, okay? I don't want them to forget about hypocrisy. But, Donald Trump was asked about Jeffrey Epstein. And when he was asked, he said, Jeffrey likes him young. Well, how did the president know that? How did he know that Jeffrey Epstein likes him young? Perhaps some people are saying he was there, since you're so concerned.
The concern in the Trump inner circle is reportedly that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't think things through and is largely despised by Republicans on Capitol Hill in addition to the Democrats. So there's really no upside for Trump to even consider putting Greene in his cabinet. The only consideration might be for MTG's feelings. But Greene has made it clear she's never going to say anything negative about Donald Trump. In other words, even when disrespected and snubbed, Marjorie Taylor Greene has no self-respect. With Donald Trump, she's like that jilted ex-girlfriend who keeps lavishing praise and publicly defending the ex-boyfriend in the hopes that maybe someday, somehow, they will get back together. It's pathetic. And to Donald Trump, it's reportedly not the sort of thing he wants in a key cabinet position like the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. So MTG is out of luck. She's considered even more embarrassing than dog killer Kristi Noem. And it's worth noting, as some of us may point out whenever we mention Noem, that the Department of Homeland Security has over 3,000 dogs. Thankfully, the fate of all of those animals will be up to the DHS dog handlers, although Noem will have administrative and budgetary responsibilities over the various agencies that deploy the dogs and employ over 250,000 human beings who work for DHS around the globe. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is envious of Noem's power, perhaps Greene should just be patient. In Donald Trump's first administration, he cycled through 5 DHS secretaries. So if Noem lasts, say, more than a year and a half, that would be surprising. Also, the job itself may be bewildering to Noem because, for example, DHS oversees the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. And Noem doesn't exactly have a lot of experience in South Dakota preparing for or responding to hurricanes. So maybe the job of DHS secretary will be available to Marjorie Taylor Greene down the road. Or maybe Greene will keep getting snubbed because, after all, she is Marjorie Taylor Greene and the president-elect is Donald Trump. And as awful as Trump is, by most accounts, Marjorie Taylor Greene is even crazier. By the way, the Trump transition team is reportedly getting weirded out by the constant presence of Elon Musk
he definitely inserts himself all the time. That's his style. That's why he's just suddenly shown up there like the guest that wouldn't leave. And I've heard from Trump people calling me saying, "Oh, wow, this is odd," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is. You'll see much more of it." But he's not going anywhere until Trump throws him out, which could happen because they're both really strong personalities who like to be at the center of attention.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Winston, who wrote, "Don't worry, Elon. Trump got what he wanted out of you." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump rejecting Marjorie Taylor Greene and humiliating her yet again. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.